On this episode, I'm going to be showing you how to fix drywall around your window. Currently, I'm renovating my kitchen, and a huge part of that is the wall with this window. I took out all the old stuff and replacing it with brand new items, so stay tuned. Welcome to Fix This House. If you're new to the channel, please consider pressing the subscribe and notification bell so you can always be in tune on DIYs, how-to videos, and product reviews that I do within this channel. So welcome back for tuning in to my kitchen renovation series. This part, we are going to be renovating around my window. So there was old trim in here, and if you look around the window itself, there is a lot of gaps, and we feel a little bit of draft coming in from all these voids from around the window. So it's only best for us to take it apart, fix the drywall around it and the surrounding wall, and at the same time we are going to be putting new cabinets and new countertops on top of our kitchen. So this is a perfect way to just renovate and redo this part of the kitchen. So what we're doing is just cleaning up, taking out all the nails, all the old wooden attachments and old drywall if there's any rot, and also any mold. So there are these gaps around the windows on the sides as well, and you can pretty much see how wide they are. This is completely normal because you want this for expansion and contraction, but there are little voids in there that we can just feel the draft. So we're going to be using this great stuff, insulating foam. It's perfectly made for windows and doors, which is great for expansion and contraction, and it is flexible and soft. You want this low expansion foam. If you're interested on this product, I'll leave it on the description down below as well. So you want to just apply this onto the crack. It's very easy. Shake it up real well and then apply it. So after you apply this, you're just going to wait a couple of hours for this to settle and harden. So it's pretty much simple as that. I'm just applying it all the way around. It's fairly easy and easy to clean up as well. Just make sure that you don't put too much because it does expand. I believe it's up to 1 inch. So there you go. We have nice and finished foam right around it. And while we're waiting for that to dry, I am going to cut up a bunch of these 3 3/4 widths of drywall. So this is pretty much just scrap pieces that I have lying around, and I'm just going to use this for my borders all the way around the window. Drop off the area, make sure that it is nice and dropped out because I'm going to be spraying texture later on. And as you can see that the expansion foam, or actually you can see the insulating foam has finally hardened up. I'm going to be using this utility knife, just retract it about 2 inches out and just cut along the excess that have expanded on that insulating foam. No, you're just going to go and cut it up, fairly easy to do, and just take out the excess. We're gonna go over the top area as well. So notice how the drywall is just sitting a little bit behind the main wall. You don't want it to go overboard because you will have a huge bump on the front, and it will make your perimeter later a little harder to install. So once that's done, you just want to scrape off the little excess drywall or plaster or joint compound. In this case, I have excess caulking that was left over from the old countertop. Just cleaning up the areas, making it look good, and prepping up for the new joint compound that we're going to be applying. Just take your time, make sure that it's nice and clean all the way around. As you can see, the drywall is a little bit for recessed back from the main wall. What I have here is a paper corner bead with a little bit of sheet metal on the inside. There are many different types. I got this at Lowe's. You can also get it at Home Depot, but I'm going to be using that for the edging and a little bit of joint compound as well. This is the perfect time to fill in those voids before you apply this. So when you're applying this corner bead, make sure that you put joint compound and make sure that everything is nice and clean. What I was using there was taking out that nail that was on the way, and I'm just going to be applying some joint compound before I apply this. This is going to act as an adhesive so that when you place this corner bead right there, it will stick really well, and you can just use tin snips to just cut this apart. Separates really well after you cut. So after you do that, you're just going to place it on the top, and you're just going to squeeze out all the excess with your drywall knife. Now you're just going to start from the middle, work your way on the side, and you're just going to just carefully squeegee out all that excess joint compound. This corner bead is meant for to have a nice raised edge. As you can see that once you place your drywall knife on the edge, you can see that there are gaps right there where the light shines through, and that's where you're going to go and build that up. These corner beads are specifically made to have those raised edges so that you can use that as reference when you start laying down or start applying your joint compound, which is really nice because then you can use that as a screed and take out all the excess once you apply all the joint compound at the top. You're just going to build out all the highs and the lows, and you're just going to take your time. It's all about finesse after that. You're going to apply the first coat, let that dry, and then once that's dry, you can sand it actually, and then apply the second coat, and then screed it just like this. So it's perfect to have those nice solid edges so that you can have some sort of reference to build out on. So as for joint compound, the texture that I like to use is a yogurt type texture. That's the consistency that I like. It's a lot easier to work with, and you can actually spread it really well because it still has a lot of water in it, and it's not so dry that it's super hard to work with. Now after this, you're going to apply the first coat after you applied all your beads, and then you're going to use either your 8, 10, or 12-inch knife, and you're just going to apply a nice second coat over that first coat that you just applied. And all this again is about finesse. Take your time, and you're just gonna go and apply the second coat, let that dry. I am using 45-minute mud, but there are different types of joint compound where you can work within 20 minutes, 45 minutes, 90 minutes, even 5 minutes. I'll leave all that in the description down below. Once that's done, it is now time to start sanding. I'm just putting this plastic barrier so I can control the dust. I'm just using 80 to 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just sanding all the high and low areas to make everything nice and smooth and flush. Now once that's done, I'm just using a bucket. Again, I'm using this 40-minute joint compound. It's perfect timing for me if you're brand new and you need more time. There is 90-minute joint compound. I'm using this paint mixer extension bit, and I'm using it for my drill. And I'm just gonna again mix this around to have the consistency of a yogurt-like texture. And I'm going to be using this Hiltex spray gun. Now this is a really nice cheap spray gun I got from Amazon. If you're interested on that, I'll leave it in the description down below. Just using my Pancake 150 PSI 6-gallon air compressor by Craftsman. And I'm just going to go and start spraying that with texture. Again, it's kind of like using spray paint. You're just going to go from side to side, go about a foot or two away. It depends on you how big you want the texture, but the texture I'm using here is small texture. I don't like those big style textures. I like them nice and fine and small. That's why I'm just going off a little bit. Now this gun has settings and adjustments that you can apply to get big texture or small texture. In this case, I'm just using small amounts of texture. Paying attention and making the top look good. The bottom part I'm not too concerned about because that will get covered by my kitchen cabinet and the countertops. I'm mostly focused on the top area and a little bit in the bottom of the windowsill. Okay, so now everything is nice and textured up. See how small those little bits of texture are on the wall. Let it dry. So a little tip, before you let everything dry up, right after you spray, take out all your masking tape, take out all your drop right away while the texture or the paint is still wet, so that don't risk about peeling later on. So if you do let that dry and then you start taking out your masking tape, there's a possibility that you might take out chunks or flakes out of your newly textured or painted wall. Now here's what it looks like now. Again, given there are a little bit of gaps between there, we are going to get to the second part, but right now we are going to go clean up all that excess texture and spray that we created. I'm just going to be using my little putty knife and scrape off the edges. Now you can use a plastic putty knife to protect your edging, and you can reduce the cracking. And I'm just using a wet rag to wipe off all the excess as well. Be careful when you're vacuuming. Don't let the vacuum slide or scrape along your newly texture, because these are still very, very fragile. Caulking I'm using is this Extreme Stretch by DAP. Again, I'll leave it in the description down below, but this is my number one caulking that I like to use a lot. Just apply a bead on the corner, and then my trick to this is you're going to run your fingers with a wet rag. Make sure that your finger is still wet from the wet rag, and you're just going to go section by section and just pretty much skim through and take out all that excess, just like what you see here. Take your time. Make sure that you make this nice and pretty, because this will be your final one before you actually apply paint. Now you can see that all those gaps are finally out. They're gone. They've been covered by the caulking, and you're just going to do the same thing on the edges and at the top area. So this is what it looks like before. Everything is torn up, old material. Everything is nice, covered up with insulation right now to reduce the draft. And this is what it looks like now, once everything is nicely textured. Again, I haven't painted this yet, but we are going to run it with primer, and then we're going to run it with our paint. So that's pretty much what it looks like, friends. Fairly easy to do, fairly straightforward. If you enjoyed this content, you find it helpful, please hit that big thumbs up, subscribe, and notification bell, and I'll see you, friends, in the continuation of my kitchen renovation series.